Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. I get to play the short one for once. How was that? Oh, hey, it's the echo. Wow, we got to see the delay there. Isn't that awesome? All right. So I get to play the role of both Talker and Fernando and the whole 9 yards. So we'll do the best we can today to make it all work. But standing to my side here is Mr. Seth Halstead. Jesus. Seth Halstead. Was that good? Did I get it?
That was good. You got it. You got
Okay.
it. You got it. Thanks, Dean.
I tried my best.
Hey, everybody.
So as promised, many times we've had him on here before. He works for JVC Kenwood Corp, and we have said, hey, we're going to get you on here one time, and we're just going to talk questions, Q&A, JVC Kenwood, because I know you guys always have questions about stuff like that, and then we will get to do that. So today we're going to be doing that, as we've been talking about for the whole week. We'll also, towards the end there, I'll give you our plans that we have coming up for the next 2 weeks and the fun and excitement in that. But just chime in, let us know where you're from, where you guys, before we get to the whole Q&A part. So we got Indiana checking in. Road trip next week. Road trip is 2 weeks. Next week we're flying out because the Knowledge Fest got canceled.
It did.
Totally bummed.
Did.
But we will be flying out to Washington to Audio Control, doing a big thing there. For the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, we'll be out there, El Fuego.
Have you been out there before?
I have been out there before. When I went out there in December of 2018 to film the Audio Control documentary.
Did you go to the Wall of Gum Wall, whatever it's called there?
No.
You gotta get Fernando there.
So we flew there, got in at 10:30 at night, got up at 7 in the morning, filmed all day, went to bed, got up again, did it. We had to fly out at 10 o'clock that night. So it was literally, we went there, filmed, left. And I took Haley because Fernando couldn't go. Because it was like a last minute thing. They wanted the documentary now. Denver, Clearwater, what's going on? Local person checking in. My tongue is not working today. Sydney's in the house. I hope your day is good. Do you know anyone in Florida that will recap? No, I do not know anyone here in Florida. You're going to have to send that out for sure. I know that Hi-Fi and Big D have talked about a guy. They've actually had the guy on the show that does that. I know Jeff has somebody that does that too. It's probably the same guy, but who's going to stereo for sale? Nobody's got radios for sale, man. Los Angeles checking in. Hi from Suram? Yep, Tennessee. Cali. Good for you. Howdy, fellas. Evening, Seth.
Hey.
German last name? Is that? I know we've talked about this before. What is Halstead? I know what it is. Okay, I know what it is because we've talked about this before. But you're a Viking.
Yeah, I mean, primarily, the name Halstead itself isn't Norwegian per se.
Right.
It's a mix. We've got a little Scot-Irish, but primarily our heritage is Norwegian-based.
Yeah, he's a Viking. It's okay, man. Just call it what it is. I'm a Viking. It's cool. I mean, how many Vikings do you get to know in your none?
No.
I mean, so call the Viking thing, man. Seth the Viking.
I did used to live in Minnesota. I mean, we had that. So there you have it.
Arkansas checking in. Chicago checking in. Hollywood. No, he's not Jeff. He's Seth. Close though.
I respond to Jeff. I get Jeff a lot.
Sean. Oh, you get Sean.
I get Sean.
Why do you get Sean?
I apparently I look like a Sean too.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Just Seth, Sean. It's close.
I mean, it's better what my nickname is. Hey, you.
Well,
Dean and Guest going to Hooters after the show. Hooters #1. Yeah, right. I put a 10-inch mid-bass in my Tacoma Kicks. It's insane. I bet it is. All right, what's your thoughts on the XR 1800P components with Audi sub? Doing a modest install with a kicker key and a modest expectation for bass. Will it be bad? Should I look for something else? It's funny you should ask that because we just did a car this week, which we were talking about, and I know you're talking about. There's only 1 0, by the way. It's just the XR 1800s. But talk about the speaker, Seth. Why do this?
Yeah. So, like Dean said, it's funny. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, and there's there's a debate for, of course, why you'd want to do a subwoofer or not, and And of course, if you have room to do a subwoofer, and it obviously would make the most sense. But if you're not looking for a considerable amount of bass, and you're just looking, correct. If you're just looking for enough good sound, mid-bass, all-around sounds, if you take a look at these drivers, they will do the job.
Mid-bass monsters.
They really are. And again, keep it in perspective. You're not going to get the sound of a 10-inch or 12-inch sub with a driver this size, but what you are going to get is an incredible sound down to a fairly low frequency. And yeah, it's a 7-inch style speaker. So, we've got the 1701Ps, 6.5 if you don't have room for it, but when you can jump up to these with a 7-inch size, you definitely do get to reap the benefits of it. So,
and you're going with a key, so that's going to be bi-amped. That's going to be awesome. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know about it is this piece right here. And a lot of people ask, and I'm sure you've gotten asked, well, if I have a hole for a 6.5, how would I put a 7-inch in it? So if you kind of see how this has this raised half-inch area, it's not even really half-inch, it's like 3/8 of an inch. If you break every single one of these tabs off, see these holes here, the holes in the center, the ones here by my finger? What this is designed to do is this will mount into where the 6.5 is, and then this will go in, and this is the spacer that turns your factory 6.5-inch hole into a 7-inch hole. And of course, if you don't, if you have like a Toyota or a Toyota, Dodge, Chevy, GM, yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
And it shows you step by step, exactly which tabs to break off, and it's not just a multi-bracket that just does a couple things. It's a multi-bracket. Yeah. It really is incredible.
But the nickname we had for the predecessor of this is the mid-bass monster, because like if you needed mid-bass or you were complaining that you didn't get enough mid-bass, for the amount of money you pay for these speakers, which is for the quality that these are and the price that they, what is retail on these? I know
Agreed.
this. How much?
No, I said agreed.
Yeah.
On that. So
I mean, if you don't, it's okay.
Top of my head is like $399-ish.
Okay, so
somewhere
what
around there. It's not $1,000.
It's incredible.
Around that 400.
So, there we go. Look at that.
Somebody talked about on there. They mentioned the basket, the backside, that kind of an X side there. And what's interesting about that is it looks absolutely cool, but that actually has multiple purposes that we put that there. So that has some sound attributes. As well as just looks. The structural design that this type of this type offers, it's we did it for looks because it goes hand in hand with the X style design. Our multimedia receivers, our high-end XR receivers, have this anti-resonance design. It's literally an X or a cross-shaped panel structure that we employ that helps and has some anti-resonance effect. But anyways, it's really interesting. So it's not, again, just something that is allowing the speaker to look cool, but it provides some sound quality attributes too. So something that I think is really, really cool.
I mean, let's be honest, looking cool is nice too. I mean, it's okay.
It is.
It's okay to be cool.
It's fun to have it, make it look cool.
It's okay to look cool. Anyways, well, that was a good question right out of the bat. El Fernandez coming in with the crazy amount of money. Whoa, way to go, El Fernandez. This is for your dinner, guys. Well, thank you, El Fernandez. That's awesome. You're the man. All right, I should have set this up before I started, but this is typically Fernando's job. All right, so let's see if this
is this the Fernando cam, or that's
this is the new version of the cam. All right,
okay,
so
I was going to say I saw something different last time.
Is it pairing up? It's still doing its thing. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure this is on.
I should be doing this, Dean, because I'm in place of Fernando today, so I need to do the Fernando cam.
It's okay. Give me a second. I'll let that boot up, and we can take a closer look at things. All right, let's keep going with the questions here. Yo, Dean, Dino from SR here. Should the Rockford Fosgate Prima 6.1 coaxial be run as high pass, full range, or what's the best frequency range for it? Thanks for great. Okay, so we're going to reword this a little bit just so it's kind of referencing to speakers in general. Prima is kind of a middle-of-the-road Rockford speaker, so that'd be just like a regular entry-level set of Kenwoods, so just like a KFC, whatever, model number, insert 6.5 here. When installing a set of those, even though it shows on the side of the box a frequency response from way down too low to probably what it's going to play all the way up. Do we want to put some form of a high-pass filter on them? Would be the question. Or do we want to run them full range? I'm asking you.
Oh, you're asking me. You're asking me.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to teach them something.
No, I'm not going to teach. Well, you're going to teach them.
All right, so
I'm just standing here
you want to
throwing
run
you
them full range.
I'm throwing you the golf ball.
Yeah. So for me personally, what would I do? Well, well, of course, it all depends on, number one, what's the rest of the system consist of. If you're going to have a subwoofer in line, then it's not necessary to have to run them full range. You may high pass them at 80 hertz, depending upon the subwoofer. So really, it really just depends on how you're going to be using these. Now, if these are going to be your sole source of bass in the vehicle, then would you want to possibly consider running them full range and doing that appropriately? Of course you could. So again, it really just comes down to how you're going to be using it, what the rest of the components in the system are going to be. Yeah, explain further if you have.
No, I'm fine with that. I mean, that makes the most sense. If you listen to some crazy hip hop music, then putting a 50 hertz, like 12 dB crossover in there is
just to protect it.
Just to protect it, it's not a bad idea. How long do you release updates for head units? So I'm guessing what they're asking here is like the software update cycle, maybe on a head unit.
Sure.
What are they looking at? How does that work?
One thing that we might do is maybe direct people to how to even update or where to look for updates. Okay, and so I should say it this way. It's kind of always been a challenge as to when have we released an update. Okay, so on the show back a while ago, we asked that your audience go, and if they want to register for something, that they should sign up for our...
That was the 12 Days of Christmas.
The 12 Days of Christmas. Mm-hmm. They should register for our consumer e-news. And it's our newsletter sign up. And one of the benefits of the newsletter sign up is, lo and behold, I run the newsletter, so I can put in what makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to know what's going on and things about updates, you should subscribe to that, number one. And that's for both.
You can do on their website, so go to kenwoodusa.com.
Directly from the homepage of our Kenwood page or on our JVC page, there's a newsletter sign up. So sign up for those. The bottom section, every single newsletter that we put out is going to have a text section that will show you the most recent firmware updates. So as soon as a new update does get released for your specific receiver, it will be listed there and it will link you to those updates. So that's your best way to know.
Yeah.
And that's not the answer.
No, I know. I'm shutting up.
But it lets you know how they exist, because otherwise there's been really no way other than you manually going to the support section
on
the website, right, and be able to access it, type in your model number, and it'll show you then if there's a firmware update available or not. Now, is there an actual schedule or structure for doing firmware updates? No, not at all. The reason that a firmware update would need to exist
I love how you said that,
is if there's a problem. Well, there's not. The goal of putting out a receiver is it's just going to work and it doesn't need an update. So there are receivers that we have out there, that have never had to have an update because there's been no reason to have an update. So why would there need to be an update? Well, one reason could be is that we found that something was wrong on our end. Maybe we needed the fan to turn on and off at different intervals to keep the receiver cooler, for example. Mm-hmm. So we could say, well, we've seen that this runs a little bit warm, so we'd like to change this cycle. Let's go ahead, let's put a new firmware update out so that it can change that. So there's things that maybe we see need to change. But then on the flip side, now we're dealing with a lot of third-party entities. Let's take, for example, Apple Carplay or Android Auto. Okay? So with Apple Carplay and with Android Auto, if they decide to change something, a specification, the way something worked, the way that a screen is supposed to display or not display, after the fact of when we release the receiver, well then the only way for it to work the way that it does with their current version of how they want things to work, which may be for a great reason, is for us to have to create a firmware update to be able to fix that, or vice versa. So again, we don't have a structure for timing for when an update needs to be released. An update will get implemented and released when there's a problem that we know needs to be solved, or when there's that's from ourselves, of course, or when somebody else has created a problem for us, meeting a third-party source. And it's and it's not that it's not for the good of everybody. But it's just something that we would have to do. So again, best way to be able to know if there is an update for your receiver, sign up for a newsletter so that you can see it. It'll come out just once a month, and you'll be able to check and see if your receiver's on that list.
Which is pretty good. As far as there again, like you said, Aaron, you're asking about that disconnects Bluetooth, reconnects. Is that a common problem? I don't know if it's a common problem or not, but definitely you want to check if there's a software update. If there isn't a software update, a lot of the times there's usually one in the works, because if you're having that problem, more than likely somebody else is having the problem. As far as whether it's common or not, they don't tell us that kind of information. They don't tell you. I mean, unless it just becomes like a total train wreck.
Yeah, if there's a problem that exists on our receiver, I'm going to start getting videos and phone calls, and our entire product specialist team, we're gonna know in a matter of days if there's some sort of a widespread problem, because dealers like yourself and all others throughout the country will be contacting us and saying XYZ. Things like random Bluetooth disconnects and that type of a thing, those most commonly have something to do with something else. Maybe it's something on your specific phone. So the first thing I ask is, all right.
Is it an open phone?
Yeah, there you go. Is it an Android? Is it an Apple? No, but in reality, let's try to isolate the variables, right? It's just like in the install bait. We've got to isolate the variables. So does someone else's phone disconnect constantly?
Yeah.
That's the first thing to check in that case. What are the constants here? The constant, well, it's going to be the phone, the receiver, maybe something else, but those would be the two to look at. So very first suggestion that I would have in that circumstance would be test someone else's phone, and then possibly if you have an Android and you test it on Android, maybe try testing an Apple phone as well and see if you have the same or different results. So that would really be the thing to do, and I would imagine that being the case, that you'll see something that is either consistent or not. And then just one last part to follow up with that.
No, go ahead.
If you still have an issue with Bluetooth disconnecting, then let's take a look at what other third-party devices are connected to the receiver, because possibly it could be something to do like you have a sync module in the vehicle, and your phone starts looking and it says, oh, I should be connecting to the sync module instead of the receiver.
Yeah, like
Bluetooth.
like we had a problem with a GM that he didn't unpair GM's OnStar.
Mm-hmm.
So it was disconnecting and reconnecting the phone all the time.
Yep.
It was like, dude, you're not using OnStar anymore. You need to disconnect from that. But yeah, sync would be the same basic idea. That we have run into, and it is a nightmare.
And the same thing goes with any third-party device. Maybe it's some sort of a watch, or you've got an earpiece Bluetooth. It's probably disconnecting from ours because something else is saying, hey, you're supposed to be connecting to me, and I have that priority based upon the permission you've given me in your phone. So I think that's enough to start with.
I was going to say, you've had this conversation, I can tell. Question asked on here that I really need to know. Brisket or pulled pork?
For me personally?
Yes.
So, pulled pork first for me.
Okay.
However, I've had some opportunities in life to have some really good brisket. So if I tasted at a specific place, one or the other, it may end up being brisket at the place based upon how good it was. But if I was going into it blindly because I don't want to take the gamble, I'd prefer the pulled pork in that regard.
That's a safe answer. All right, moving back. Let's see. Hold on. All right, so real quick, 2000 Acura, Seth, if the signal from the head unit is already crossed over at the speaker plug or right of the... So basically what we're asking is, this is a fun question when it comes to factory installed systems. Is it, especially in a Honda or an Acura at that point, is there a factory crossover installed? And one of the main reasons why people pull out their factory radios and put in aftermarket radios is obviously because there is some form of equalization done from the factory. Mm-hmm. It's done at the process. It's done at the core level of the unit and not in the wiring or a passive crossover located next to the speaker. The only time where that would become an issue is sometimes, hey mom, they will put inline passive crossovers for the tweeters, which really sucks. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's horrible. What were they thinking? Does the 9907 in 3-way crossover mode allow for digital time alignment, or is it defeated? I'll be running Morel Virtu's 602 comp sets active, an image dynamic sub, and a JL 5-channel amplifier. It's funny you should mention that. We were just talking about that. So, for those of you guys who don't know, these 9 series radios and the 10 series radios have 3-way, we'll call it network mode, but you guys call it something else. You don't call it network mode.
We refer to it as network mode, but it's just listed as a 3-way crossover.
It's on page 87. I know that. You do have to download the manual. Is it always the 2 outside buttons to activate it?
It's a different sequence of buttons on each of the receivers, but every receiver that we offer it on, we show you in the owner's manual.
Yes, on page 87.
Or in concept, could be a different page, but what 2 buttons it is. But it's a series of going into the standby.
His radio is on page
AV
87.
That's specific.
Because we just did that. As far as will the time alignment still work? Do you know the answer?
I don't know. Do you know the answer?
I know the answer because I just did it.
Okay.
The answer is yes. The time alignment still works. Basically, all it's doing is it's really where the change comes in is in the crossover section, because it now gives you a specific for channel 1 and 2, or yeah, so 1 and 2 is mid bass, 3 and 4 is tweeter, and 5 and 6 stays sub. That's where it varies from Pioneer, because Pioneer 1 and 2 is tweeter, 3 and 4 is mid bass, 5 and 6 is sub. But on Kenwood, 1 and 2 stays mid bass, and I think that has to do with Bluetooth directing, so that the Bluetooth comes out of the mid bass and not out of the tweeter.
Right, and we tell you that little message that it's going to screw things like that up if you don't know what you're doing, because you have to be prepared for
I never
the
read
way
that.
it's going to affect Bluetooth.
Okay.
Well, of course, who reads those messages?
Nobody. So, anyways, yes, once you get to the time alignment, then it's the same thing. What it does is it moves the 2, on that 9 series, it moves the 2 speakers closer together in the artwork, so they're not farther apart. But yeah, it still works all the same. You still get your level control, you still get everything. I will say this, on the 10 series, the artwork for that is so much better. Oh my God, it looks
brand new platform.
Awesome.
It's incredible.
Yeah, because first we did it on a 10 series, as I was telling you about before we started.
Sure.
Then we did it on the 9 series, and I was like, wait, it doesn't look the same. And I was like, oh, dang it. But no, but the 10 series also has the parametric EQ, which is like the sexiest thing in the world, so I think we're okay there.
Yep.
But no, to answer your question, it still works, and what you're going to do is going to be awesome. Like when we did it on a set of Morel Maximus 602s, which is their entry-level 6.5-inch components. And I got done with it, and we did it on the 10 series, and I swear to God, I don't know why it sounded so good. Like I don't think that amp has ever sounded that good. I was like, he didn't pay for this. He didn't pay for this kind of sound. It was incredible. I was just floored. David Moreau, thank you so much. Hey, Kenwood going to come out with a standalone DSP.
Oh, I'm glad he asked.
Oh, you have an answer? Or do you just want to know? Or is it just so you can go back to the powers that be and say, David Monroe, he paid $5 to ask this question.
I'm glad he asked for a specific reason, and it's not because I have the answer to that question, but I've got somewhere to go with it. So let's proceed. So the question is, what do all of you want to see from either Kenwood or JVC? This could be specifics on products.
They want a 1,000-watt JVC amp. He did say that.
Okay. This could be, I think you should get into another category, because these are things that we're interested in an in-vehicle type environment, or something that connects you from your vehicle to your home, or something to that effect. The reason that I think it's so cool that he asked the question there is that every single comment that you inquire about today, number one, I'm going to be looking at that, and these are all comments that will have a direct look. Somebody always, how many times you get the question, oh, well, I'll ask something, but it will never get to the source. It will never get to the top level, to the manufacturer themselves.
I tried to express that on this, but
everything that is in the comments today will be reviewed by myself and my team.
Josh is in there now.
Some people from my direct team right now are already looking at this and being a part of it, but most importantly, our entire team within JVC and Kenwood, even our engineering team, if it's something that you have as suggestions, we will be looking back at this. So please include those in the comments. And as far as a standalone DSP, I'm going to let Dean speak now because he's going somewhere with this.
Well, this isn't the DSP amp. The DSP amp is behind your head.
Yeah, I know, I saw
which
that.
Which is the 10 channel, and yes, that would be sexy as hell if they would come out with a standalone DSP. I've been asking for it for a while, and the conversation we've had about that particular amplifier is that I wish version 2.0 would happen, because it was
way ahead of its time.
It was way ahead of its time, and we've learned a lot from it, and I know a version 2.0 of that would be simply the coolest thing ever, because that's typically what happens with Kenwood. The first one comes out, and they're just kind of like, is he going to buy this? And then some people buy it, and then they're like, hey, if it did this, it'd be cool. And then they go, yeah, but no one bought it. And then it's like, no, but make a second one, and then they'll buy it because we'll change all these things. So I know that the second version of that would be phenomenal. But
in the comments, if somebody says what they'd like to see in a second version of that, put that in there. What would you want to see in it, Dean?
So it's a 10-channel DSP right now with 6 channels of amplification.
Correct.
The main problem that really kind of poo-pooed it from the beginning was it only has 2 channels of input because it was made to work specifically with iData.
Correct.
Which are all these harnesses on the wall behind us, and God rest his soul. Anyways, if it had 6 channels of input so that somebody could plug it directly into a Kenwood radio and then go like 6 channels built in, then we'd have front and rear. So we'd have either 6 channels up front, rear, and sub. We would have 2 channels, or tweeter, mid, rear, and then add an amp for sub. Now the amplifier is this size right here, and the reason why I brought this amplifier out of the box is this is the 1,000-watt Kenwood amplifier. So what makes this cool is that they're both the same size, and one of the really cool things that we've done in the past is we take that amplifier and we take this amplifier and we slap it into a Toyota Tundra, and we put a bunch of subs behind the truck, behind the seat, and then we take a small 2-channel amplifier that powers the rear, and we use the 6 channels in that to do the JBL system. So that's really nice. But we can also do a lot with just these 2 amplifiers. But somebody was asking about a 1,000-watt amp, and Kenwood makes one.
Yep, and you'll see with the 340 amp fuses, and if you ever
do
an amp dyno on this, it's not just 1,000 watts. This is the real deal.
No, this is a beast. There's no question about it. And it does come with a bass knob. The bass knob is included in this one, guys.
I've seen that on other questions or other comments and other shows, and asking about that.
Why did you get the bass knob in the box, man?
Same thing with the XR601-1. That's something that's included, and we even added that on the box, that it's included in the box, because we hear that that's important.
Ooh, I like this one.
At least having the option for it.
So all right. So SJC Audio Guy, thank you for the $5. How can you make a 3-way active or passive system using the KFC XC3s? Asking specifically for a Corolla, for example, is there a better 3.5? One of the features of the CX3, so that's the cool 3.5 that we've talked about that you guys make, and it's a 3.5-inch driver.
Right. We've had this conversation.
Yes, we've had this conversation with the driver. It comes with a 6x9 if you get the 6903s, Cs?
Correct.
Okay, good. I was just guessing. Yep. And then if you just buy the 3Cs, it is a 3.5 with a tweeter in the center. They make the 2Cs, which is the 2-inch high-frequency mid-range. However, what's unique about the 3C is that it's the wires for the tweeter are external. Okay, so that means it's a biampable speaker. How do you make that active or passively? So whatever mid-bass you decide to go with, let's say you go with the 6x9. The DSP 600 would be the best way in their lineup right now to go 3-way active, because you can run channels 1 through 6 to that system. Meaning you can use 1 and 2 for the tweeters, you snip the wires, you solder onto them. You can use 3 and 4 for the 3.5-inch mid-bass and 5 and 6 for the 6x9 in the door.
Right.
Then you still have 4 outputs, so you can still do rear and subwoofer.
Right. And to clarify, because you mentioned that, on the XR606 DSP, yes, it was designed to be used in conjunction with a Maestro-specific vehicle that was supported with an AR. And, of course, that was the the whole purpose of this, but then the limitation of how many vehicles existed at the time, those were just obstacles. So we said, all right, well, how at least can it be used universally?
Yes.
And that's where we said, well, okay, well, here's a way to do a universal harness. You can either make one your own, or here's a way that we have this as a universal harness. So yes, it's 2 channels of input, so you just have those 2 channels. However, of course, you can go and use the app and then go through channel by channel and independently assign. So you wouldn't have a fader control, but you still can assign and
once you
adjust
do a DSP,
each channel
nobody
universally.
ever uses the fader control.
Exactly.
I have never had anyone come back after I've tuned a car and go, I was using my fader control the other day. No, you weren't. It's surround sound, like just in your house. I mean, the whole idea is to get there and go,
it's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, my hair is standing up. I have a lot of hair. Seth, if Kicker or Rockford Fosgate offered you more money, would you be willing to bail on Kenwood JVC? I mean, okay, don't answer that. Don't answer that unless you really want to.
Okay.
But let's be fair. If anybody offers you more money, the chances of you like moving is pretty good. However, I can tell you this right now: both of those companies require you to live where you're at. I mean, not live where you're at. So if you want to go to work for Kicker, you have to live in Stillwater. If you want to work for Rockford, you have to move to Arizona. So that, I think, is more the problem with either one of those.
Yeah. So the company that I work for, one of the things that's so great about it is the company from day one has supported me.
Oh, Jeff Smith says hi.
What's up, Jeff? Has supported me in growing and allowing me to learn. And for those of you that don't know, I come primarily from working in the world of retail, being a salesperson, being a store manager. I worked in distribution for a while, distribution sales as well, and then Kenwood was the first manufacturer that I became a part of. So no, so anyways, the company itself
why did he say that?
Right.
Distribution sales is kind of a just answering to that. Anyways.
Yeah, distributor.
Go on.
So anyways, so the point being here is that the company has really allowed me to excel and even promoted me throughout my path at the company. And it's something where I think it's fair to say that the company itself wouldn't be exactly as it is without me, and vice versa. I wouldn't be where I am at all without the company. And it's something that I see as being a lifelong career path for myself, and it's something that I'm very proud to be a part of. And the loyalty that I have for our corporation is incredible, probably much more so than some would think. Now, on the flip side, everybody wants more money. Who doesn't want more money? You'd be a fool to not want more money.
I'm good.
So
I got enough.
More money is an incredible thing. Everybody wants more money. So not really a fair question to be able to say anything in that regard.
It's okay.
But I think it's important to make it state as how good of a company and how good of a philosophy our corporation has and what we employ. It's an incredible company that has incredible ethics, and it's something I'm very proud to be a part of.
All right, thank you. Scott has a great answer. Scott, thank you for the $5. And I like this one because I'm with you on this. On the 9907 XR, so basically any 9 series, can you explain why the eject button does not directly eject the disc? It goes to the screen setup that might only need to be used once.
Okay, so they're talking about the one that actually has the motorized face itself. Well, no, which model is that?
It's 9907.
So on a 9907, that has the full screen. When you press eject, it brings up the display that allows you to adjust the screen or then press the eject button. And it's because, well, actually people told us, hey, we want an easy way to be able to adjust the screen so that if the sun is shining, a little bit brighter or easy, this is a push button way to do that without having to go into the menu structure to do that. So it came because, well, people asked us to do it.
This was 6 one way, half a dozen the other. I mean, everyone was complaining about this, and now everyone's going to complain about that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm taking it as a complaint, but yeah,
right.
I get it. Okay,
but then ironically, it takes us into the other conversation. So let's say, for example, like a DDX 6706S that doesn't have an eject button on it.
Oh, that drives me nuts.
The very first time.
The first time it took me 10 minutes.
We're in the world. And so why did we make that decision? Well, literally, when we put these receivers together, we don't just say, well, we're just going to do this. There's actually some thought that goes into it. We look at each of the buttons, we look at pressing and holding if it can be a second command as to what it can be, and then we go out and we poll our dealers, our other colleagues, and we say, listen, what what are the things, rate it from top to bottom, which feature that you want. And guess what? Disk is the least used feature anymore. Even though a lot of people like disk, we know the momentum is digital
media.
media.
You don't have to carry bottom. It's
and
all right.
so,
it's all right.
Being that it's the least used, well, at least we can get there. You can press the menu button, and then the menu can bring up a list of commands and have the eject button. So it was something that definitely we couldn't have gotten away with a few years ago.
No, but now it's less and less.
We pretty much can, because we don't get all that many questions or complaints about it. Yes, I mean, we get it. If you are one that uses a disk every day, you're not going to be happy.
I'm good with that explanation.
But it is what it is.
That seems to make the most sense. Jovan is going right down my page. It's like they're just stealing these in case I forgot. What about a 7-channel amp to consider the center speaker? It's about time.
Yes,
we've had this conversation.
It's being
working
talked
on it.
about.
Yeah, so he knows.
Yep, we get it.
Yeah, I would. For the money, you kidding me? I'd be out here like a hot turd on a Sunday. Okay, hold on. Let me get back to this. That was good.
There's a lot of stuff we're missing here, so we got to catch up.
Seth, is Kenwood coming out with a follow-up to the 10-inch screen radios, or because of the chip shortage, is Kenwood shipping to 2021, just pushing the current models? So,
yeah.
What is our life going to look like for the next couple years as far as new radios and stuff like that?
Sure. So, the first answer to that is our number one focus is being able to produce the existing receivers that we have and make headway in getting as much as we possibly can out to our dealers to be able to sell them.
Right.
Number one priority. So that takes the focus away from any new products or new production, because nobody needs anything new right now. You need the receiver that works, that performs the function that customers are asking for, that dealers are starved of right now. I mean, we're seeing this.
Like you and I both know, when we go from one year to the next, it's like, what did you guys do differently this year?
Yeah.
So right here, see this one spot?
So are we going to have new receivers, and is there a plan for further development and going into 2022? And what I can tell you is that absolutely we're going to have some new receivers.
I mean, there hasn't been a year that you haven't.
No, but is it going to be at the level that you've seen, previous CESs? We've had Kenwood JVC releases 52 new products, and they're all releasing like that. It's not going to look like that anytime in the near future. We're going to have strategic upgrades for specific products if it makes sense.
Right.
So, for example, let's not beat around the bush. What's going to make sense with a multimedia receiver? What's the biggest growth segment with receivers right now?
The big screens.
Well, that's big.
Wireless Carplay.
But overall, in the industry, the biggest growth of a specific category.
Are we talking
ATV
receivers type stuff?
No, just the technology of a receiver. So you're not picking up what I'm
better
putting down.
Screen.
But
I'm sucking, man.
We've transitioned to the digital media era.
Okay, so we're gonna put DACs.
So more and more. No, I'm saying more digital receivers, less disc mechanism receivers.
Oh, so mechless. We're gonna
So okay. More and more into the world of mechless. It's just a reality. It's back to our conversation about the eject button.
Okay.
So is there a reason that we may have to do more that direction? Well, then that's going to make sense.
Right. Short chassis.
Yeah, it's
bigger.
Absolutely.
So what I'd like to see is keep the deep chassis, put a big ass amplifier inside of it, run a 10 gauge or 8 gauge wire out the back. That'd be cool. I get the whole getting hot in the dash, but I think G&H amplifiers have pretty much solved those issues. Mm-hmm. And you make small enough amplifiers now that get buried in side panels and all that.
Yep.
But it was like, it'd be really cool to see.
Just all built into it. You don't have to do any extra work. Right, it's just there.
So, for example,
wires.
like you look at the Helix match stuff, where they have those little tiny 7-channel amplifiers.
Okay.
And you're just like, oh my god, like literally that could fit in the backside of a singleton radio. Mm-hmm. And the guys that make the little amps that clip onto the back of their radio,
right.
Like a 5-channel version of that would be cool.
Okay.
I think stuff like that. Because, I mean, if that's in there, we're losing the IC power chip, or we're making a better IC power chip. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could see a world where we just do multiple IC power chips with bridged outputs or something like that.
Sure.
Bigger, like an actual power supply and stuff like that, where we do have to run power wires to these radios. I mean, Sony's doing it now with their big dog. So, I mean, that would be cool. But there again, on the opposite side of that, do we, and this is where, from a company standpoint, we have to go, all right, well, how many radios are we going to sell? Meaning cars. So there's two sides to radio replacement. And this is funny because this is the conversation we had in the class I was supposed to be teaching. And I'm still pissed about. Are we going to be putting radios in the dash? So do we waste time coming out with features like where everything is built into the radio and multi-channel amplifiers? Or do we put time into, like he was hoping that you would answer, whether or not you guys are coming out with a DSP? Because we only have so much engineering staff. And does Kenwood making DSP amplifiers or DSP make more sense than radios? So that's a tough one.
Right. And all questions that of course, are legit questions. And, of course, we're contemplating and evaluating and seeing what makes the most sense. And all of those are realities. And we're looking at all of those realities.
And you weren't going to say, just to make him feel, but you weren't going to say whether or not you were going to make a DSP, right?
No, I wasn't going to say that.
He was never going to answer that.
However, I will tell you that if we were coming out with one or we had any information, that you're going to hear it here first. So stay tuned.
There you go.
So there you have it. So that's important.
And I will know before you do, and I will not be able to tell you.
Living in the same vicinity of the one and only 5-star car stereo. So there you have it.
So no hope of Kevin coming out with a 12-disc CD changer. One
RF
reason,
modulated.
Yeah.
You know, hey, we were
oh,
kings
dude,
of it.
We
could bring back the KGC 4042A, or I mean, where are we going with this?
One reason that discs are selling is because there is nowhere to buy them except Amazon. Digital audio would be one declining if you couldn't find them anywhere. CDs did not decline until. I mean, let me ask you this: when is the last time you bought a CD?
Are you asking the audience? Or
no, I'm asking you. When's the last time you bought a CD?
I can't even remember. I have no idea. It had to be over a decade ago, if not two.
So the last CD that came into my house was a Kenny Chesney CD because they gave away the CD if you bought tickets to the concert, and Sue bought tickets to the concert. I did not have to go.
Are you a country fan?
I am not.
I knew that.
I am not a country fan, and I don't have to go to these concerts, so I don't. But, okay, so I get it. Some people are buying CDs. I don't even buy DVDs or Blu-rays anymore. Do you still buy movies?
No, I haven't purchased a disc.
The only disc
I can't tell you.
There was an accident out front.
Oh, fire engine and everything.
Yeah. The only disc I buy is I bought a copy of a Star Wars movie. You know, because I was like, ooh. But even still, I never watch them. I open them up, take the download code out, and then I put them away.
Apparently, I mean, it's not a bad thing. People still do buy these
shiny
things,
yeah,
and it makes sense. And we sell a ton of disc mechanism receivers. It's not going away right now.
No.
We're still going to be doing it. It's just the momentum is going more digital media based, and that's the point.
Well, the nice bonus, too, was that closed iPhone, those minis over there at Apple that said, hey, you know what, we're just going to give you lossless for free. So you can download CD quality music, a minimum CD quality music if it's available. Maximum will give you better, but oh man, doesn't that suck? Have you downloaded any of that yet and listened to it?
What's that?
The new lossless from Apple.
Have you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me, dude?
Yeah.
Fernando literally ran in here the next day. He's going, dude, check it out.
Right.
What are we working on? I gotta listen to this stuff. Like he's gone through and deleted all his songs and re-downloaded them so he could get the better versions of them because he has the GS9 in his dash. So for him, it's like, you know, hi, I'm Fernando. I have a GS9. What do you have? Oh, factory sucks to you, bro.
We're missing Fernando tonight. We're missing him, but
he's
first time I've ever been on the show without Fernando. He's having a good time, though, I'm sure.
Okay, let me ask you this: were you big into bass back in the day?
Me?
Yeah.
It was my start.
Okay.
Listen, at the last Knowledge Fest, Wayne Harris was there.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. You told me.
And I'm setting up our booth tonight. Go ahead.
Okay. So you guys know who Wayne Harris is. Anyways,
DB Drag.
I totally
invented it.
So I totally threw you under the bus.
Okay.
So I went over to Wayne. I said, I've never met the guy. I said, you're Wayne Harris. He goes, yeah. And I said, you know, a friend of mine told me that he just met you and he had like the total girly chick flick just fawned over you moment. He goes, who was that? I go, Seth from Kenwood. He told me he came over here and he was just like, oh my God, it's Wayne Harris. And he blushed. He blushed because he was like, no, he didn't do that. And I was like, man, he told me he was just like,
It's the real thing. I mean, I told you this story earlier.
Yeah.
Listen, when I was, I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. I would do the same thing. I'm just as giddy.
I was 12 or 13 years old, and my dad had one vehicle, and it was the first time that it was a powered EQ, and I was playing with that. But literally, he bought me a vehicle, or us, to drive around the backyard. It was a Subaru station wagon, and I got to, I was taking our speakers from the house, home speakers, and putting them in the trunk, trying to figure out how all this stuff worked, and just having all sorts of fun with it. But my next door neighbor, here's where I was going. He would come home this was a black two-door Chevy something. I don't know the name of it at the time. I'd know it if I heard it. But anyways, doesn't matter. Middle of the night, he'd come home, late night, and I hear this boom, boom bass.
Boom, boom bass.
And I was a little kid, but I was listening to music. I liked bass. And who was out at the time? This was like...
Wait till society falls. I'll be trading CDs and laminated swimsuit issues.
Exactly. So anyways, I heard this bass, and it got me hooked. I said, how does this happen? I want to be able to make this happen. Anyways, fast forward a few years, and then get into high school and learn about DB drag racing. And several of my friends, one of my buddies, Jason and Kurt, we'd go and we'd find where these DB drag racing events were being held at, and they were fun at that time. Really fun. And much more than just a bass event, but just learning the whole culture of putting the microphone up by the window, just the whole culture of how it all worked. And of course, so at that time, every time the new Term Pro CD would come out that you had to use for those, that back to CDs, I was getting that actual CD. So back then, that was still a big thing. But I got my start in this industry liking that bass and really, really being into it, competing with it. Never got like crazy with it. But then, it was kind of the joke of, what are you going to do with that? You can never take that anymore.
The reason why I led you down that path was, did you have the Techmaster PEB CD?
I didn't, no.
Really?
No, I didn't have that one.
Okay, I'll send you a copy.
Yeah, I'm going to need it now.
Okay, so I like this one, since we're talking about digital media, but no digital outputs for DSP units that have digital inputs. We've talked about this many times off camera. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of go over the thought process here.
Let's kind of go in a few different directions with it too, but we can go
narrow it down.
Yeah.
So your radios are compatible with playing what formats? Well, as far as high res goes.
Okay, so you've got high res FLAC, 192K 24-bit, Wave.
Yep.
Okay. DSD. And then you've got selectors. So we had DSD on some receivers, and then it went away for one generation. And then for our new 10.1 inch, when we brought back, or I should say, we added in the parametric EQ, those receivers, then we enabled support for DSD again. Okay. And one of the things that's unique about our receivers is that, most of the time, what's being fed into it is being downgraded, for lack of a better, easier way to explain it, to a lower resolution.
Yeah, so that's like the cheaper radios, like the $120 radios that'll play FLAC files.
Yeah, they'll decode it, but they won't actually play it back in its native format. They'll downgrade it to a more basic sound quality, which most people aren't going to tell the difference, but if you understand it, you will be able to hear the difference.
Right.
And that's not something that we were willing to do with our products. So yeah, and then the various forms of DSD, DSF, same thing, style. That's basically answers your question. There's LDAC if we get into that with Android. But
what is the DAC inside of the radio doing? Is it doing so it's decoding it, and so the reason why there's no Toshlink output on the radio is because you guys feel your DAC is doing a good enough job.
Correct. Well, that's not the full reason, but it's part of the reason. Right.
Right. We have talked about many times that just to make everyone happy is to put a Toshlink on the back of it so that they can do an external DAC. Is that something that has gained any traction at Kenwood whatsoever?
So the reality is that we talk about it, of course, because it gets brought up all the time, the question gets brought up. And one of the things that we have to consider as a corporation is that, number one, we're a worldwide corporation. And that's very different than a lot of other companies. And although we have a specific team here in the United States and much influence, and in fact, probably the largest portion of what we do for our specific sector and brands is from the United States, it still is something that we have a lot of considerations that we have to make because we're making products globally. And so that's anyways, we'll build on that. That's one of the considerations. But it's definitely something that as more and more DSPs become a reality and vehicles go that direction and it becomes more and more necessary, it would make sense that at some point there would be a percentage that's increased that it makes sense regardless of the repercussions that exist. For example, your tuner in a receiver itself.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to that AM/FM tuner with just a basic scenario of adding an optical input when you go to the tuner source?
Okay.
Okay, so what is going to happen?
Well, now you have to take the FM and you have to up-res it or down-res it or convert it over so that it'll go over the optical. So you got to put a whole new optical...
If you're going to make it work, which a lot of people don't even make it work.
Yeah, so... Alpine. Okay. And then you're going to have to do the same thing for Sirius XM. You're going to have to do the same thing for your aux jack.
And we don't have just FM/AM tuners. You know, globally, they have these things, DAB,
oh, God,
plus that you have to consider
HD.
And where that goes into. So as a company, what we have to look at is, number one, what percentage of users would actually use this first? And will there be, of course, there's always going to be a certain percentage at different, and then the next question is, worldwide, how much of this is going to be used? Because when we go into production, to be able to put it out at any sort of a reasonable price point, typically these are things that have to be globally accepted.
Right.
Although more and more exceptions to that going forward with specific products, but as it makes sense, it's something. It's a consideration that we have to discuss. So the answer is, number one, yes, it's gaining traction. It's being looked at. We're considering it more than we were last year, the year before. But there's a much larger picture to it. And if everyone was just always willing, and it's funny because price point right now, we can't discuss it the way we could previously. Somebody would really complain about price points. We're in a different world right now. If we can deliver anything, anybody's going to pay anything for car stereo because there's just such short supply. So it's not the world that is the norm if that ever becomes what it was again.
Right.
But anyways, there is a cost involved that would have to be absorbed globally as well as just in the U.S. So of course there's the cost aspect to it. But I think what you'll see, this is a personal. This isn't even companies per se.
This is Seth's thought.
This is Seth's thought, is that naturally at some point there's going to become a breaking point where it makes sense for us to do, because at least a certain percentage of what we believe all of you are going to need, it's going to hover over that point where it makes sense. And I'm not saying it's going to be 50% of people. That's not realistic.
No.
But if it gets to the even couple of percent, 2, 3, 4, 5%, then it's something that cost would make sense for us to be able to do. So we're not looking for it to be half of all installs are going to require some sort of a digital input or output. No, but it needs to continue going the direction that it is. So I think over the course of the next few years, it's definitely something we're going to be looking at harder and harder.
Well, if you guys have been following along, Josh has been doing a spectacular job in the comments answering your questions. Josh works for Kenwood JVC. He is one of your underlings.
That's Josh Bowen. So he's one of our
Josh will be putting in for
product specialists
for an hour of overtime work this weekend.
It's funny.
So
both him, Marcus Vasconcelos, our other product specialist.
I'm sorry
he should be in here too. He may be under a different name, but either way, I said, listen, you guys. I said, I'd highly, suggest that you come on board and back me up here during this, so you can help if there's specific
so when the boss
questions
says,
that come up.
It would be a cool idea if you guys were there. You just
then they can attest to this. The next thing I said was, you realize that you now get next weekend off. And you were going to have to work all next weekend because they had to go to Knowledge Fest and it got canceled. So you should probably make this a priority. So all joking aside, awesome to have him here. And in fact, one of my guys, Josh, he lives up in the Panhandle. Someday
Florida.
I'm going to get him to come down here. We talked about, and we'll get him on the show.
I talked to him on the phone
here
the
as
other
well.
day.
And if Marcus is ever over, he's over in Oklahoma, so a bit more west. But we'll have him on as well. So good stuff, and thanks for what you're doing, guys.
Well, we'll do this one real quick because you've asked us a couple times. 360 cams. So you guys have the high-res cams.
We have a high-res cam.
And so
CMOS-740 HD.
Correct. I said cameras. I'm sorry.
Well, they can work in front or back. So
correct.
It's like
that's why I meant cams,
even though
because
it's one
there's
product.
two inputs for them.
On the 10-inch. Yeah.
I know this was something I brought up to you, the 360 camera idea. And this is one of those things where, as a company, is it something you guys are going to look at? Is, that kind of falls into that whole, well, how many people need it? Who's doing it right now? So...
Well, guess what? We already do it, just not in the Americas. It's something that in other countries, the first time I was at one of our technical seminars in Japan, not the first time, one of the times I was in a technical seminar in Japan, the first time that I saw this, just like you would see on, a high-end new, I don't remember the first vehicle I saw it in. Anyways, it was a higher-end vehicle, and it had the 360 cam and showed me all the things. I said, what is something in the sky looking down on us? This is incredible. And then I see it up on our presentation screen that we're doing that, and I was like, yes! And then they're like, oh, it's for these markets and these. And I was like, oh, so disappointed. But the fact of the matter was, okay, well, let's put this in the perspective of curving parking, dynamic parking guidelines. You can't just magically make them work for all vehicle. It has to be for a specific vehicle.
What are you talking about? They've been doing that.
So with a 360 camera, this was designed because in the market that it's in, it's a select or the dominant amount of vehicles are specific manufacturers of vehicles that they can meet the requirements for, whereas in the U.S. we have
too many cars,
and each one it would have to be different for. So yes, it's absolutely something that we're not only looking at, we're actually doing already. So our engineering team is fully equipped to be able to go that direction. Undoubtedly, I think we will see that at some stage in the game, but there's a lot bigger part to that equation that we just explained with all the different vehicles out there. So yes, I'd love to see it.
You don't like the fake dynamic lines?
The fake dynamic lines, they're pretty.
You know how I describe those?
No, how?
It's like driving a jet ski. Okay. If you're driving a jet ski, and
there were people driving jet skis on my way over here, by the way. I go right past the water and I see them as we're working.
You've driven a jet ski before, right?
I've never.
You've never driven a jet ski?
I've never driven a jet ski.
So it's a jet drive, all right? Okay. So what that means is that if you're going and you turn the wheel, the jet churns you. Okay. So you steer from the jet. If you're not under jet and you turn the wheel, nothing happens. Okay. So you just keep going straight. Because to turn, you have to have forward momentum. So those full backup lines I describe as riding a jet ski.
All right, makes sense.
If you're backing up and you have rear momentum, it will pick up you moving. It's just the centripetal force of you moving and just move the lines. Okay. But if you stop, it does have a pause built into it so they don't automatically stop. But it's like if you're backing up and then you have to wait, because the car's coming, they're just going to go boing, back to straight.
Right.
And they're not going to move because you stop moving. So they're like jet ski lines. And they're definitely not accurate, but a lot of people get excited because they like to see those little things move.
Right.
So, oh my gosh. Well, that's been an hour. I know we didn't get to a ton of questions. I feel we got some really good ones. If you're interested in finding out more about JVC, head over to jvc.com or just go into your browser, type in kenwoodusa.com or just type in Kenwood USA.
I can give you the full address, kenwood.com/USA/car or us.jvc.com, et cetera, et cetera.
Just type in
if you type in JVC or Kenwood, you're going to get to one of them somewhere, and it'll direct you there once you pick it. So,
and of course, you can find out more about the products there and check it out. And then for us, if you're trying to find cool tools to do your installation, head over to dnftooldrawer.com. That's Dean and Fernando's tooldrawer.com. And if you want to pick up yourself a shirt, I'm wearing my retro shirt today, as someone said earlier in the show. Head over to dnfswag.com, and you can find all your cool shirts. You know who Brian Mitchell is, right? From Arc Audio. So in Orlando, I hung out with him for quite a bit, and he always does things to the extreme. So I just said, you take it way past 10.
That's
so
awesome.
We made him a custom shirt that says, taking it, break the knob off and go right to Brian Mitchell.
That's hilarious.
So, but wait, you can have more. So I got mine in the other day, and of course I sent him a bunch of them, and they sent me an email going, these are delayed. And I'm going, oh, of course they're delayed. And not that it matters anymore, because Knowledge Fest ain't happening, so whatever. Well, that's it, guys. That's the show. It's Saturday night, and well, hey, if you're gonna go have fun tonight, do it safely. Uber, Lyft, they're cheap. You know, arrive alive. Don't do dumb stuff, because on Monday we want you guys back on the Facebook. We'll talk all about the trip that we have coming up here next weekend to the rainforest up there in Washington State. We got a couple shows that are planned, and they're going to be awesome. I'm not going to lie, they're going to be awesome. And we're just going to have a gay old time, as Fred Flintstone likes to say. And then the weekend after that, that's right, back-to-back weekend trips. Tell me how stupid I am. We'll be doing Road Trip 2021, our crazy 20-hour drive to Stillwater, Oklahoma to return their car. I know, right? I'm dumb.
You're crazy.
Fernando agreed, so...
We don't have anything else to do, so, you don't ever do anything.
No, we were just sitting around anyway, so it seemed like a perfect idea. So make sure to tune in Monday. We'll go in depth as far as what's going to happen on those things. I'll have my roadmap hopefully up for you guys to see where we're going, and we'll just talk about general cool stuff like answering your questions and fun stuff like that. I like to give I'd like to give Seth a big thank you for making the journey out here and answering all the questions that we can.
Hey, Dean, thanks for having me. All these comments, thanks to all of you for watching and providing the comments. They are going to get looked at.
Yes, if your question didn't get answered, I apologize, but if they will be read and they will be looked at. So that was the nice thing. Josh did a bang-up job in the comments, so thank you, Josh. And I know I forgot the other one.
Hey, quick question. If you're watching this after the fact, can you still add comments to the feed down below?
You can add comments after the fact. So if whoever's watching this now, you can make comments because it becomes a normal video.
Right. So keep the comments coming on here. If you have product suggestions, things like that, I'll come back and I'll look at this specific feed format. So again, thanks for everyone. And thanks, Dean, for having me. This is really fun.
Thank you guys for coming out. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great weekend as always. We'll see you later next time.
See ya.
Bye.